Everybody, welcome. This is Two-Way Tonight. I'm Mark Halperin, editor-in-chief of Two-Way, and your host for the next hour through confusion. Thank you for being here. We'd love to have you participate. If you're here on the platform, raise your hand. Um, I won't say this is the most confusing day in the short history of this war, but it might be. Let me tell you why. The media is obsessed with peace talks, and I'm not against the peace talks, mind you, but I think the media has obsession with process because they all want to know who's going to Islamabad and when. I think the media's obsession with peace talks has caused many of my colleagues, to take their eye off the ball, and this is true of interested observers in the financial world, in the political world. Are there'll be peace talks? Who will go? When will it happen? These could be important, although the Iranians said late tonight that they're not participating in any peace talks. And Caroline Levitt today was pretty down on the concept, I felt, in terms of her tone. So all day, people obsessed with peace talks. Late in the day, it seems like they're not going to be peace talks anytime soon. Also, Caroline Levitt announced today that the president's summit in China with Premier Xi is going to be in the month of May. Okay, now I'm no expert on the calendar, but that means they're not going to have the summit in April. Maybe that means they don't think the war is going to be over. And there were attacks back and forth between all sides. So my point is, with the exception of the discussion of the potential peace talks, this was not a great day if you want the war to be over soon. That's my read of the news, except the markets. The markets love today. Dow up 305 points, S&P up 35 points, NASDAQ up 167, and oil down, Brent crude down, still around $100 a barrel. So why the market so happy? Because again, I look at the totality of what I observed and reported today. I think the president, I'll just tell you my hunch now, based on the totality of what I know. I think the president and Bibi have had a plan all along to do regime change, to not allow, you just think about the logic of this. The whole point of this extraordinary unauthorized attack, the whole point of all this firepower, the whole point of assassinating a bunch of foreign leaders is because this regime has been run by crazy theocratic murderers. And if you replace a bunch of crazy theocratic murderers with a bunch of crazy theocratic murderers, you haven't really solved the problem. So I believe, although it's been played down, and although I believe the president could end the conflict without this, I believe that there's been a secret plan to do regime change and to not end this without, how did World War II end with the Japanese and the Germans? Surrender. Okay, they can, as the president likes to say, they can do it the easy way or the hard way, and they could surrender now, could agree to the president's plan and surrender, or they can do it the hard way, and they can surrender after more of them have been killed, and perhaps after there's been an uprising in the streets. Now, before everybody goes crazy, I'm not making a prediction that this will only end in regime change, and I'm not saying my sources have told me that, but based on the totality of what I know, I believe that's what's happening, and I believe that this war will go on, and I wonder what will happen to markets tomorrow and overnight if the sense that there'll be peace talks based on what Iran said this evening is snuffed out, and if there continues to be conflict, including Iran attacking countries in the region and Israel attacking Iran, and the strait remains closed. I wonder what the markets will do tomorrow. A couple polls out today show that this war is not popular. And I'll show you, I'm going to talk to my guests about this, but it's such an important finding, we're going to show it twice. Number 3, please. Quinnipiac asked voters, do you think the war will make the world less safe, more safe, or no change? That seems like a very good question to me. Here's what Quinnipiac found. Safer amongst all voters, 35%. Amongst independents, which is really the only number we care about because polling is so bifurcated and polarized, only 2% of Democrats in this poll think the war will make the world safer. That's crazy because because it's a perfectly reasonable thing to think it will make the world safer. Those 2% are the only ones who can make a judgment separate from their view of Donald Trump. But anyway, less safe, independence. It's really the only number in this poll I care about, honestly. According to the Quinnipiac poll, 49% of independents say that the war will make the world less safe. That's not a very good sales job by the administration. It's an extraordinary number. Okay. So we're going to talk a lot about the stuff I just raised. Caroline Levitt briefed today and said quite a number of things, including, as I said, that the Beijing summit is now going to be in the middle of May, May 14, 15, 2 days down from 3. And the president will eventually host the Xis here in the United States. I shouldn't say here in the United States because I'm not currently in the United States, but in the United States. There's some odds and ends that we'll cover. But the most important thing we'll do tonight is look at some video of the First Lady with a humanoid robot. If you haven't seen this, I'll expect you to send me a tip because it's going to change your life. Melania Trump with a humanoid robot. Our guests will be here in just a moment. We'll discuss all this, and then we'd love to have your participation if you're here in the two-way platform. Please raise your hand if you're watching on X or YouTube. No smack in the chat. Peace, love, and understanding, presumption of grace extended to all. Try to be in the spirit of the platform. What we do here is we listen to people, and even when they disagree with us, especially when they disagree with us, we listen, we hear them out, we learn from them. And typically when people say things on this platform you disagree with, their view is held by millions or tens of millions of other people in the country and in the world. So you should be delighted to get a chance to hear from them, and I hope that will be reflected in your comments. And maybe I need to put a finer point on it. If someone disagrees with you on this platform, they're neither stupid nor fat, necessarily. If they are stupid and or fat, it's incidental to the fact that they said something you don't agree with. All right, quick word from a sponsor, then our guests, and then to you all. Cozy Earth, 20% off everything on the site. Use the promo code two-way. If you need a blanket, new sheets, new towels, new pants, new socks, new shirts, I think you should try replacing them with Cozy Earth products because Cozy Earth products are extraordinarily well made. With the 20% discount, they're even more affordable, and it's comfort that carries you from morning to night. This is a brand that you've probably seen their ads, you certainly heard them here, and you've probably seen them elsewhere, and you've thought, I don't really know what that is. They're extremely comfortable, extremely soft, extremely luxurious, and at an affordable price. Go to cozyearth.com right now, use the promo code two-way, and get 20% off. Just browse through the website, find something that looks good to you. If you want to start off on the smaller side, cheaper side, more affordable, get some socks for yourself. There's not a person out there who has enough socks. When you go to the sock drawer tomorrow, you'll remember this because you don't have enough. Their socks come in all sorts of styles, and they're very breathable. I recommend them to you. Calf, quarter, ankle, no-show, whatever you want. cozyearth.com, promo code two-way for 20% off everything on the site. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Ladies and gentlemen, two returning Jeopardy champions, two guests who've been here before, and we're always delighted when they're willing to come back. A Democrat, happens to be a Democrat, Yemisi Egbewole. Yemisi, welcome back. Thank you for being here.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
What's up with you? Separate from the war, do you have any updates you want to share?
Separate from the war that is impacting my day-to-day life. I am a teaching fellow at the Political Institute at USC right now. So we're in the middle of a bit of a storm, given that we've canceled a debate. So that's what's up.
Have you been involved in that intimately?
My fellowship is through the Center for the Political Future, and they are the people that helped put on the debate. And
right. Is my friend Dan Schnur, is he still involved with that thing?
Is who?
The guy named Dan Schnur? Maybe he's not.
No, maybe he's with the Election Integrity Center, because there was a center that did the methodology that we decided the candidates from. But yeah, USC is kind of in the middle of.
It's an incredible. Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. It's an incredibly interesting story.
Yeah, I don't want to talk
USC had a big debate scheduled at TV. I was going to be on WABC, KABC, I believe, and for the California gubernatorial candidates, and the interesting. they hired a professor to come up with the debate criteria, and he came up with something I've never heard of. He said the debate eligibility is going to be based on your standing in the polls. That's pretty standard. And then how much money you've raised per day since you got in the race. So if you've been in the race for 10 months and you've raised $5 million, and you've been in the race a day and you raised $1 million, you're gonna be more likely to get in, right? That's a shorthand, but that was the formula he used. And under the formula he came up with, and he wasn't involved, he says, in the debate itself. They just asked him to develop criteria. Under the formula they came up with, 6 candidates made the debates. 6 or 4? How many? 6 made it in, or 4 made it in?
It was
6, I think.
I
think 6 made it in.
Yeah,
and they were yeah, that's right. 2 Republicans, 4 Democrats, and they were all white. They were all white. Oh, the Democrats were all white.
No, everybody's white.
The sheriff's white too. The sheriff's white. I guess he is. Yeah. So 6 white candidates made it in, and then the next tier of candidates who didn't make it in were all people of color. And so on the one hand, I can't even name them all.
Oh, it's Becerra Villarosa, who had been the
mayor of Los Angeles.
Old mayor. Becerra, who we all know, ran HHS for Biden, and then Betty Yee, who's Asian woman comptroller.
But I think there was a 4th one too, maybe.
There was a little controversy because Matt Mahan, who was the mayor of San Jose that got into the race a couple weeks ago, had met that fundraising cap. But somebody like Becerra, who'd been running since, April of last year was when he announced, still hasn't made it. So, naturally through the methodology, the bottom 3 just happened to be people of color. And so a lot of the interest groups and the caucuses within the California State Assembly just kept hounding and pressuring USC. Then late that night, right before the debate, we're talking like 9 p.m. before the debate, I think the president of USC kind of just broke under the pressure and called it off.
Now, we're talking about this for 2 reasons. It's an incredibly interesting story that hasn't gotten much coverage, and our other guest is having trouble logging on. So we're using the time here. Yemisi, what I don't understand is, why didn't they just let 3 more candidates in? Why didn't they just say, okay, let's do a 7-person, a 9-person debate?
Okay, so
better than canceling it?
Yeah, well, they had agreed to the methodology and to do the system, and they talked to ABC about it. ABC agreed to that certain amount of candidates, so they got the cameras for that. You do TV production, Mark. They had already signed a contract and set up the cameras and everything for the debate. So then when they wanted to add the other 3, which the president of USC did suggest, ABC was like, this is too late. We just need to stick with the process that we've already all agreed to. And quite frankly, USC, when people first pushed back and said, this makes us uncomfortable, we don't like the fact that it's like it all happens to be 3 people of color. Somebody like Becerra was saying this feels intentional in a way. He was really whipping up the Latino caucus, which is very strong in California. USC had a chance back then to do negotiations with ABC about the staging. They doubled down and they said, no, we're sticking with this. So for ABC, 9 p.m. at night, right before wasn't the way they were going to do this.
Who were the moderators going to be?
I think it's like local anchors.
Yeah. So what I would have done, and by the way, at least some of the candidates, the white candidates, I'll call them, said our colleagues should be allowed in. They advocated. Right. What I would have done is I would have said, all right, ABC, KBC, you don't want to be in the debate. We'll do the debate in a conference room, and we'll record it with student cameras, and then we'll put it on C-SPAN, like YouTube. Like, they should have done the debate. They shouldn't have canceled because the TV partner said we don't have enough podia.
Yeah. Tom Steyer held a debate apparently that same day.
By
and
himself?
He invited the candidates to come. I think a couple of them, Matt Mahan decided to go. A couple of them decided to go. But some were like a no. Look, the way it's set up though, which is what's making people get a little nervous, is there's too many Dems in the race, and it's splitting the votes in such a way, right? If for those of you who have not been tracking this, it's splitting the votes in a way where the top 2 contenders right now are the Republicans. And so if Dems don't figure out a path here, they're actually going to split it to create a way for Bianco or like Steve Hilton, the two Republicans, to end up as the governor of California. We might have another Republican governor of California if folks don't drop.
Because we've talked about this before, but California system, the top two, regardless of, everybody runs on the same ballot, top two, regardless of the party, go to the general election. And right now, with 9 Democrats running and 2 Republicans, and the 2 Republicans are pretty decent candidates, they could split the Republican vote and independents who vote Republican, and the Democrats could split the Democratic vote, and you could easily see no Democrat making the general election. There'll be a recall if either of the Republicans is elected governor. There'll be a recall election, almost certainly. So we'd start the whole thing over. All right, our other guest is having trouble, so we're just going to go forward here. And again, raise your hand if you want to be in on the conversation. Let's run through some headlines. Number 1, and this is consistent with my reporting and my point of view. White House, this is Wall Street Journal, White House threatens more attacks if Iran doesn't make a deal. Arab mediators say Iran has shown willingness to hear out diplomatic efforts to bring the U.S. and Iran together for talks after Tehran rejected Washington's proposal to end the war. So there's a 15-point proposal from the United States, which I actually think, I say this objectively, not as an American, but just as an observer of the realities of this situation. The U.S. proposal is not unreasonable. Then the Iranians have their own proposal, which is absurd. It includes no American bases in the region. It's just an absurd proposal. It's not realistic. And here's the New York Times. Again, Tehran dismisses, number 2, Tehran dismisses ceasefire offer, but signals openness to talks. Again, they'll tell other countries, the intermediaries, the Pakistanis and others, yeah, we'll be interested in talks. The U.S. took the Speaker of the House and the Foreign Minister today off the kill list. Temporarily, they said. Temporarily, we won't kill the 2 gentlemen who seem to be amongst the interlocutors the United States has, but they won't come to talks in Pakistan, which is where the U.S. was ready to meet, and so I don't know in whose court the ball currently is, because I don't think the U.S. is going to change its offer, at least not right away. Here's again, I talked about the economy. The market reaction, number 4, please. Dow up 300 points today. Dow rises 300 points as traders hope U.S. and Iran can still reach ceasefire deal. Let's talk about the point I raised, and it's implicated by this headline. What would it take for the markets to crash if no real talks and in fact the prospect of talks? Now, a lot of this developed after the markets closed, I understand, but why do you think the markets are so and oil is so low, oil so relatively buoyant in the face of a war in the Middle East? Why are markets not just in free fall?
I think cautious optimism, because you do have congressional leaders like Speaker Mike Johnson saying this is all but done, and then you have the White House pounding that message of this is not going to be a long-term permanent war. I mean, I think a lot of us disagree, but Republicans united on the messaging of this is short-term pain, so it makes companies cautiously optimistic. And also, higher gas prices is actually such a benefit for energy companies that I almost think this is an energy shock to the market, and this is why it's up so much. Out in California, we're almost touching 7. I mean, I might actually put my butt on public transportation in California. Nobody does that. That's the point that we're at here. Yeah,
you might have to take the subway. They have one there in Los Angeles. Doesn't go many places. You can take it to the LA Times. I know that. All right, let's put that Quinnipiac poll back up, because I really want to hear what Yemisi says about this. Number 3, please. Let's say there was like a West Wing type plot development. President Trump called you and said, "I need you to come help me message this war." And as a patriot, you cannot say no to your president. Put up number 3, please. And he said, obviously we're doing something wrong, because independents do not think that the war is going to make the world safer. Again, under the Quinnipiac poll, the question: do you think the war with Iran will make the world safer, less safe, or no difference? Independents, safer 25, less safe 49, no difference 22. So if the president hired you and he said, "I just want you to get that 49 number way lower, and I want it to all go towards safer, because this war's intention is to make the world safer," what would you advise the White House to do to get that 49 number down?
I would say that you have to make engagement with Iran almost feel domestic or touching our shores. When the president deals with Mexico, when he was dealing with Venezuela, and he said, this is to decrease fentanyl trafficking through to the United States, that feels something that can almost touch your community and like everyday Americans. And so polling would then reflect that I feel safer, that we have eyes on Venezuela, we have eyes on Mexico. Even I think with the situation with Cuba, that is an island incredibly close to Florida, South Florida, a community that is very big within that area. So everything about engaging with Cuba feels okay. This is U.S.-Cuba relations that directly impacts America. Iran doesn't feel close to the everyday American. I mean, the Arab region, the Middle East is just a place where we've already gone through with Iraq the idea of we have to protect the United States by being tough on the Middle East. And I just don't think that works on a second rinse again with another generation, especially when we're talking about putting more troops on the ground. And Republican leaders, well, some Republican leaders are hesitant about that. I mean, I'm going to say this, thank God for Congresswoman Nancy Mace saying, I'm not going to support troops on the ground. And I think we need a counterbalance to Lindsey Graham. But I would say lean away from the Lindsey Graham messaging and find a way to make Iran feel close to the U.S. because it doesn't.
Okay, so I take your macro point, but drill down off the top of your head. Yeah, give me the media plan. What should the president do? What should surrogates do? What should the talking points do to get Americans to feel that this would turn out? Because this is the kind of job you had when you worked in a White House for a different person. But would you see the president going on podcasts? Would you see Marco Rubio going on the Today Show? Like, what's the way? And what are the talking points that should go to surrogates to say, we want you to understand that this war is going to make you and your family and the whole world safer?
I would immediately take Lindsey Graham off of television, and I would ask him not to speak about this whatsoever, because I think he makes suburban and independent voters feel a little bit uncomfortable with how zealous he has been about that. So that's one. I would actually have the president backseat a little bit on Iran. I think the president speaking in the Oval Office about Iran said they had a gift for me. I think he tends to veer away a little bit and centralize himself within this conflict. I would put Secretary Marco Rubio at the forefront. I think he instills confidence in people. I think he makes them feel, and I'm being generous here, I think he makes people feel assured about moving in a direction of continuing this conflict. And I would also minimize our Secretary of War, because when you're talking about a $200 billion price tag, it doesn't matter how unsafe people feel. They're just not going to want to lean. If it costs that much to protect us, I might just pass it up anyways. So I would tap down on the financials when we're talking about the cost of war.
Right. And what would your three top talking points be, again, with this expressed interest in signaling to independents that this war will make the world safer? What would the top talking points for that be? Would it be Iran has nuclear weapons? Would it be that they have long-range missiles? Would it be they foment terror? Like, what would you want to hear your surrogates saying to reach the ears of independent voters to get them to change their view of whether the conflict would make them safer and the world safer?
I would say maintaining the U.S. as a strong world power and protector of the free world means engaging with Iran. I would tap into that patriotic vein that people may have. I'm a hard sell on two other talking points for this.
Yeah.
It's don't talk about the price tag and talk about the U.S. as a world power, but a soft sell, I mean, for something that's so wildly unpopular. And I think especially unpopular to people, which I'm in that millennial band, unpopular to people of my age range.
Yep. All right, thank you for that. Here's Caroline Levitt today. Again, she spoke at length about the war at the briefing. I'm trying to remember if any other topics came up. It certainly was easily the main topic. And she was asked about regime change. And I thought this answer was interesting. Yemisi, curious to see what you think. Number 9, please.
The president yesterday said that he had achieved regime change in Iran because the regime has changed. In terms of...
I mean, has it not?
Well, the leadership.
Their entire leadership has been killed, and nobody has really seen or legitimately heard from this alleged new leader. So wouldn't you say there's been a change in the regime?
There's been a change in leadership. I mean, do you feel as though...
There's been a change in the regime leadership, which is what the president said. So thank you for confirming he was right.
I mean, do you feel as though...
What do you think of that answer?
I think just because we don't see someone doesn't mean that there's been. I'm thinking of a way to not just jump to a Democrat who just like readily disagrees with Caroline Levitt.
No, that's okay.
But
If you disagree, you should say so.
Well, I think it being a theocracy, to me, there will never really be a full regime change because it means changing the ideology and what I think is just the theocratic vein that runs through Iran. And so, in my opinion, I don't think that there will ever be any real significant change done in Iran. And I think that's going to just be a hard question for her to have to answer again and again.
Yeah. Let me correct myself about Caroline Levitt. There were lots of other topics actually that came up. I'm now looking at a list, and I don't know what made me say that, but there were other topics, and we'll actually cover them. Here's Caroline Levitt talking about the question of whether the White House had a 15-point plan that various news agencies reported on that they proposed via the Pakistanis and others to Iran. This is number 7, please.
15-point plan is inaccurate. Can you say what is accurate with respect to ballistic missiles, the nuclear ambitions, and the Strait of Hormuz, which are things that the president has laid out that he wants to see a couple times in the past?
Look, if you've heard it from the President of the United States, obviously it's true, as well as the objectives of Operation Epic Fury. We've said repeatedly, I've said them from this podium, the Pentagon has reiterated them. That's why we've taken military action to achieve them. So of course, those are goals that we want to see, but this full 15-point plan that's been floating around in many of your outlets, there's a lot of misinformation to that as well. And again, I would caution you from taking things from anonymous sources rather than verifying them directly with the White House.
So part of what makes me think that the president's intention, barring Iran surrender, is to expand the use of military force, including limited American forces on the ground, is the way they're messaging the peace process. The way they're messaging the peace process seems geared towards doing several things, none of which are about actually getting a deal. One is they're letting it kind of drag out, like the president said, 5 days, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of urgency about it. And number 2, they're kind of mocking the Iranians. You know, they're mocking them daily in a way that I just don't think anyone would say is conducive to getting a deal. And then number 3 is, of course, they're continuing the military pressure. At least the Israelis are. So, just your view of that is: does it seem like they have a hunger for a peace deal, a hunger to get these negotiations started, or they're just basically saying surrender, or you know, we're going to continue to destroy your country?
No, I don't think you can really make peace with Iran. I also think that the Iranians have been throwing it back the same way that the administration's been giving it to them. I think, yes, this administration has mocked Iran, but I think Iran has done the same. I mean, was it yesterday when the president talked about the gift? Do we know what the gift is? I mean, Iran immediately came out and said that's just incorrect.
Interesting. Huh. If they wanted to make a deal, what would they be doing differently?
If Iran wanted to make a deal?
No, if the U.S. really wanted a deal, what would they be doing differently? Like, if they asked you to say, we want to make sure the Iranians understand this is serious, how should we talk about it publicly and privately? Like, what does it look like if they really want to make a deal different than what it looks like now?
If the U.S. really wants to make a deal with Iran, what does it look like?
How would they talk about it differently than Caroline and the president and Pete Hegseth talk about, you know, the prospects of a deal?
I mean, they should talk about the relationships that they have with the countries that surround them right now, the countries that are incredibly upset. I mean,
Right.
Is it Saudi Arabia and Kuwait are talking about $60 billion that that's costing them in their own countries, and how the missiles have been hitting debris from the missiles have been hitting homes within their region. It would be, do you want to stabilize in a way where it's not just China and Russia that are your allies, but you can exist or coexist somewhat peacefully with your neighbors in the region? I mean, Iran will always have an upper hand in the fact that they have a conduit that has 20% of the global oil supply. But
Right.
if the US is willing to make people feel this hurt, I think the question is how long are lawmakers, will Republicans let people feel these gas prices? Because I don't think that there's anything really Dems can do about that. I mean, all of their messaging is, and Democrats are running ads at gas pumps right now, all of their messaging is like, the gas pump hurts because of what Republicans are doing. So I think it's really incumbent on the Republican side to put pressure on the president right here.
You mentioned Mike Johnson earlier. Here's Mike Johnson from today talking about the prospect of the war going in a different direction. Number 10, please.
So I'm optimistic that's going to happen. The buildup of troops is very different than boots on the ground. We don't have boots on the ground. I don't think that's the intention, but I think Iran should watch that buildup, and they need to take note of that. They have to reopen the strait. They have to be good neighbors to their Middle East neighbors over there in the region. They cannot have a nuclear warhead. They cannot have that capability, and they cannot declare war on the United States and Israel, which is what they did, decades ago. Our mission will be accomplished. I think that will wrap up in a short time period, and I know that's the intention of the administration and the Department of War. We have the greatest, most powerful military fighting force ever conceived in the history of planet Earth. It's an amazing power that we have, and we wield it for good. We've done it here. That job is almost done, and I think it will wrap up soon. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll wrap up soon. Here's Caroline Levitt talking about the role of Vice President Vance, a topic of interest in Washington in the press room today. Number 11, please.
Anything has changed. The vice president has always been a key member, the president's right-hand man, and a key member of the president's national security team. He's been part of these discussions throughout this entire course of the administration with respect, again, to the 12-day war that the president and his national security team negotiated a solution to, with respect to the ceasefire between Israel and Gaza and the release of the hostages, which there was a lot of criticism that couldn't get done, and it did. The vice president has been by the president's side every step of the way, and any reporting otherwise is just completely false. I see him in the room. Again, the president seeks his counsel on all matters, both foreign and domestic.
Can we talk about that? I see him in the room.
Yes, please say what you wish about that. I'm curious.
It's just, I see him in the room. Okay, is he speaking? Is he leading any of the messaging on this? This really is, and I mean, this is going to play into that political lens with Rubio and Vance, but to me, it just always looks like Secretary Rubio gets the lead stick, and then on the back end, everybody says, well, JD is in the room. I almost think it's worse if you're in the room and you don't have a voice. I would rather than just not be in the room, because I think it's a reflection on my own leadership if I'm in the room and nobody's listening to me. But I mean, if that's their defense and their line, well, he's in the room, I see him in the room, then okay. I think Susie Wiles probably wields more power and strength in those meetings than Vance, but it's probably hard for him to hide his past as an isolationist. So
let's talk about a topic that came up at the briefing today, which I'm super curious to get your view on. It's about the shooting of Sheridan Gorman, which I don't believe we've talked about on this platform, which at least not on my shows, which we should have, but the war's crowded out a lot of stuff. College freshman, Loyola University in Chicago, whose accused killer, Jose Medina, was here illegally, and he killed her in a horrific way. It's gotten a ton of attention in some quarters of the media, and here's Caroline Levitt talking about this case today. I'm sorry. Do we have Caroline on that? Or maybe I'm wrong.
No, we don't. She did talk about
it. Okay.
We have Brandon Johnson on it.
Yeah. Here's the mayor of Chicago talking about it today. Brandon Johnson, 19, please.
Did you
18.
consider rescheduling this event given the murder of Sheridan Gorman by an undocumented immigrant?
Well, look, as I've said before, my condolences to the family of Sheridan. This is a terrible tragedy. And what I've said from the very beginning, I'm going to continue to use every single tool that's available to me to protect the residents of the city of Chicago. And this tragedy is not going to deter us from our work. In fact, it's going to challenge us all to double down on our efforts to ensure that we are protecting every single individual across neighborhoods. And look,
he says this in front of an Abolish ICE banner. I have no doubt that the mayor of Chicago, the governor of Illinois, are saddened by the death of this young woman, and that their families, they feel horrible for their families. But Donald Trump now for 10 years has highlighted the death of American victims of violent acts at the hands of people in the country illegally. Why wouldn't the Democratic Party why would it be, what's the countervailing pressure on them? It's the right thing to do to try to solve the problem of people in the country here illegally killing American citizens. It's the politically popular thing, I have no doubt. But Democrats typically either don't talk about it unless asked, or they say things like people in the country legally commit crime at a lower rate, or they say, this isn't the issue. I mean, why wouldn't Democrats just be as vociferous and as passionate about things like this than Donald Trump is? Why wouldn't they be?
Yeah, this is, I will say, a blind spot for Dems when you have these certain cases. And I'm also thinking about Laken Riley in Georgia, and how you get to a point where somebody like Senator Raphael Warnock votes for the Laken Riley Act and also spoke on the floor about Laken Riley is you realize that you don't demonize all immigrants by talking about the evil that exists in the world. This young woman left her home to go be with her friends, live an everyday, normal American life, and it was taken from her. And Democrats have to remember that Americans don't live in these ideological arguments that we all do for fun multiple times a day, every day. They don't live in like the everyday politics bubble. They live in communities. And when things like this happen and we don't speak up about it, I think it actually pushes us like 10 steps back. Because the mayor, and I have a lot of issues with the Chicago mayor. The mayor's doubling down on Abolish ICE and tying it explicitly when everybody in his city is talking about this case actually does more harm for the Abolish ICE movement, and I think really empowers what I consider the reform movement for ICE, which a lot of moderates stand for more. But I think the progressive wing of the Democratic Party and their push for Abolish ICE will harm themselves even more if they don't actually look at these specific cases. We're not talking about all immigrants in general, but these specific cases, especially when it involves young women at like the prime of their life. That's the kind of victimization that any household, no matter if you're Democrat or Republican, can agree is tragic and heartbreaking and actually should be punished.
But why isn't that happening? Like if I were the chairman of the DNC, I would say, every time one of these things happens, we need to have a press conference immediately, every Democrat saying that person was in the country illegally, whoever let them in, should have trouble sleeping at night. I celebrate the life of this person who was killed, and the person who was here illegally should face the most severe penalties possible. Why wouldn't Democrats just do that? What's holding them back? Is it that the base will be angry because they'll say you're demonizing people who are here illegally and we celebrate people here illegally? Why wouldn't they be just a massive, like if Bill Clinton were still in politics, he would do that. He would do that for sure. Why?
Yes, he would. Yes, he would.
Why no Democrat does this? No Democrat.
Okay. If we're talking about the DNC, look, Ken Martin and Kevin Walling, friend of the show, has a lot more love in his heart for Ken Martin than I do. I'm a little bit more critical of him, but he leans so much, and a lot of Democratic leaders lean this way. We are a big tent party. Everybody's invited, And that means that you also have to tailor your messaging a lot of times. So Democrats will agree, okay, we can have compassion in these situations, but they'll split when it comes to, and then we also have to follow it up with enforcement and judicial consequences. And when you rely on the Big Tent party and you lean too much into listening to what I believe is just like a very fringe, progressive, far left part of the party, then you're quiet when these moments happen because you've conditioned yourself to believe that any kind of speaking out about it means that all immigrants are bad. But you also kind of you underestimate an entire constituency, because I think the people watching this, everyday Americans, know that we can talk about this specific case, and it doesn't mean that we believe that all immigrants are inherently evil. I was an immigrant. I'm a naturalized citizen. I came here when I was 7. I don't believe all immigrants are inherently evil, but I do believe that if we fail to speak out when things like this happen, then we're actually doing an injustice to most immigrants.
Let me ask you about another communications challenge. Say you worked in the Biden White House as a top communications advisor, and Laken Riley is killed, and they look into the facts and discover that the person who killed her came into this country illegally when Joe Biden was president, and maybe Joe Biden's administration failed to deport the person when given an opportunity. And the president says, I want to go out, I want to call her family, I want to fly them up here, I want to speak passionately about this guy should get the death penalty. And then someone says, well, Mr. President, it's your policies that let this person in. Would that be a barrier to denouncing what had happened? Because some Americans would say it's Joe Biden's fault, or you would say, Mr. President, just take responsibility and say we've already instituted changes, et cetera. Because I guess that might be some of the reason why Democrats don't want to own up to this, because they've supported policies more than Republicans have that have created the circumstances where this has been allowed to happen.
Yeah, the mayor of Chicago never once said that it was a policy failure, and never took what I feel like when something like this happens in your city, you almost should take a tiny bit of responsibility for it. And I would have advised President Biden that you should bring her family up. And if that family doesn't want to speak to you, then you should just call the family. And then you should do a speech, and you should talk about, I mean, I think the speech that Senator Warnock did on the floor about Laken Riley, everybody, if you've not listened to it, everybody should listen to it. It is moving. It is about the moral obligation to take care of one another. And if you ignore your neighbor, and if you ignore young women who have been victimized in your community simply because the perpetrator is an illegal immigrant and you don't want to send out some kind of rhetorical messaging, if you let all of that erase you just being human, well, then I think you failed as a neighbor, but then also as a lawmaker, as a politician.
Well said. All right, 2 more things then to your questions. Please raise your hand if you want to get in on the conversation. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen, video number 24. This is the First Lady of the United States with a humanoid robot strolling around the White House. 24. For those of you listening to the podcast version of this show, the First Lady of the United States is strolling into the East Room with a robot, a humanoid robot. I don't know. Yemisi, she look comfortable to you? You look awkward? Not the robot, the First Lady.
No, yeah, I think she's trying to match the pace of the robot, and it's just they don't walk like a.
Yeah, it's a little awkward. I would have liked if she walked over and whispered something in her ear, the robot's ear, maybe.
Yeah, I just think this is like something that instantly gets clipped and lives forever on the internet in various ways, and I'm excited to watch that play out.
Yeah.
So.
Somehow the robot found its way around the table and is now standing in front of the table where the First Lady is, and I don't know. There's just something. There's something epic about this. Here.
Can I say this is very? This is incredibly smart. I think at a time when people think that Congress and the White House and government in general is outdated and behind the times, especially when it comes to technology and AI governance, this is a very smart thing to put in her bucket as First Lady, because we know that we really don't see a ton of events out of her. I thought this one was incredibly strong for her.
Yeah.
I mean, a robot at the White House is good. Yeah. I'm very tech friendly. I'm like, this is where the world is going, and you can bury your head in the sand and ignore it, or you can embrace it and find a way to talk about it, especially on a global stage with all of the spouses of world leaders. I think it's smart.
Yeah.
I give it to her.
I agree.
I think it's smart.
I agree with
I
you.
didn't like the Melania movie, but I like this. So
Anybody know where that robot was made? Michael, where's that robot made? Yeah.
Ooh, and that is a good question. I hope
Yeah,
it
the
was made
robots.
by
Yeah,
an
American
American
union workers.
out of some
Yeah.
manufacturer in Ohio.
Yeah, yeah. All right, quick word from a sponsor, then we'll find out where the robot was made, and then to your questions. The Upside app gets you free money. No gimmick here. It's a download the app. It's free, and you use it when you ever go to restaurants or participating supermarkets or gas stations. All you do is download the app. It's free. Open it up. That's free. Use it. It's free. It'll tell you where you can use it. And if every time I travel or I'm at home, tons of options of places to use it. Pay with your credit card the way you normally do. Get all the points you get when you use your credit card or cash back from that, and then you get additional cash back. There's no gimmick here. They've given away over $1 billion since they started up. They give away $1 million a week to people who are users of their of the app. So take out your phone right now, put in Upside, download it, use the promo code two-way on your first purchase of a tank of gas. You'll get an additional 25 cents back. And once you do that, you'll see, ain't no gimmick here, folks. It's just free cash back for using the Upside app. Cash back on gas, groceries, and dining, the three things that everybody uses and pretty much drains everybody's wallet. Again, the Upside app. Give it a try today and use the promo code two-way for 25 cents off your first a gallon for your first gallon of gas. Ryan, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind for Yemisi, and thank you for being part of Two-Way.
Hey, all, out here in California, Bay Area, also a fellow alumnus of Bellarmine College Prep as our Mayor Matt Mahan, as well as Sam Liccardo, little known fact as well. Go Bells. So I completely disagree with the fact that he's running for governor. I think it's just for me, I think it's about him getting name recognition for his next opportunity to run. And we have too many people in the race here in California.
Who name recognition for who?
Matt Mahan, the mayor of San Jose.
Oh, Mahan. Okay.
Yeah.
I missed that. Okay.
I think he's going to win. So that's where we differ.
You think he's going to win?
I do.
Okay, I think 3% to winning is a big jump, but we also saw Zoran, so I'll give him that. But wait, Ryan, do you like me? I really, really like Mahan. I mean, as a moderate Democrat, a lot of what he says is like in my lane. I wish he would have gotten in the race way earlier.
I'll agree there. I think the fact that he jumped in so late it really hurts him with respect to Mark's comment about him being a potential winner. I think he's very common sense. He's done good things here in San Jose. Just another plug to my old school. He was the valedictorian of our high school as well as Harvard alum. So, I mean, he's got great
his campaign.
Thank you, Yemisi. Maybe I'll reach out to him.
I think he's going to win because I think he's a really talented guy. I think he'll raise a lot of money if he gets any traction. I think he'll do well in the debates when they happen. And I think the field is extremely weak. The robot, by the way, was made in California, Sunnyvale, by Figure AI, a US-based AI robotics startup.
Of course Ryan, it was.
Yeah. Ryan, did you have a question you wanted to ask about your former schoolmate or anything else?
So I may have missed it. The district in Palm Beach, I believe it is, where Mar-a-Lago is, that flipped pretty dramatically. Also, if I'm not mistaken, we're pushing the SAVE Act, but our president mail-in voted, if I'm not mistaken, in that same race.
He did. The president's view is occasional mail-in voting is okay by a few. Mass mail-in voting is what he opposes.
Thank you.
Yeah, Yemisi, we talked about the Palm Beach special election for a state legislative seat this morning, but curious for your view on how encouraged Democrats should be by that result.
I think they're eating up every single, especially in the state houses, that flips. It's just like a tell for the midterms to come. I'm whispering blue wave. I'm not saying it out loud because if you say it out loud, it doesn't happen. But I'm whispering blue wave, and this feels really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mark, I know you've mentioned that you're skeptical the Senate will turn. I mean, it seems like race after race. I know all politics is local, but I mean, do you think your viewpoints are going to change if you see these special elections continue to go the way they're going?
Have you watched my hour monologue on the Senate on Next Up?
I will catch up on that.
I recommend you watch it. If you say the Democrats are going to take the Senate, you have to say how they're going to net 4 seats. And in order to take the Senate, they have to go 6 for 6 in the following races. They have to hold Michigan, Georgia, and New Hampshire. Okay. And then they have to win Maine. They'll hold all 3 of those for sure. Yeah.
And then, the 3, North Carolina, Georgia, Michigan, they'll hold.
Well, North Carolina is a pickup, right? So they have to pick up Ohio, Maine, and North Carolina. They have to hold Michigan, where Democrats have a very competitive primary. Republicans have a strong nominee in Mike Rogers. They have to hold New Hampshire, where John Sununu is a strong candidate. They have to hold Ossoff. Then they have to win those 3, and then they still have to win 1. So if they go 6 for 6 in races that I guarantee you, with the possible exception of North Carolina, all 6 of those could go either way. They have to go 6 for 6, and then they have to win either one of 3. They have to win Iowa, Texas, or Alaska. So based on my reporting, that's a tall order. Republicans only have to win 1 of the 6, and they keep control almost certainly. So yeah, I think it's going to be very tough for them. Yemisi, thoughts on that? Thank you, Ryan. Thoughts on my Senate analysis?
I think Ossoff could do this. Ossoff could do this in his sleep.
Yeah, look,
I saw the reporting. Buddy Carter was like,
yeah, but you think Susan Collins can't win? You think Susan Collins can't win?
Let me tell you about Maine. If we go with Graham Plattner, then we're not getting Maine whatsoever. I also think Susan Collins is like the sleeper candidate, where everybody always tells me like we've got the winning thing to
never happens.
And I don't doubt Susan Collins.
Okay, let's say they go 6 for 6. Let's say they do. Where's the other seat they need to pick up for you? Which is the most likely? Iowa, where Republicans have a strong candidate. Texas, which is Texas, or Alaska, which is Alaska. Which of those 3 are you most bullish on for your party?
I think Mary Peltola could be a real challenger to Dan Sullivan. I think if Rob Sands was running in the Senate in Iowa, he would have been a much better candidate for Iowa and would have been a pickup. But he's obviously not doing that. And Texas, I'm not having a real conversation with Texas. I'm not wasting my energy on Texas. I'll leave that to everybody else to do. I think that Texas will always be Texas. Sorry, guys.
So you're saying, that's all right. So you're saying Alaska, because you basically said we could win Iowa if we had a different candidate, and we're not going to win Texas. So Alaska, they do have a weird system. Everybody runs on the same ballot in the primary. Top 4 go to the general, and the general's ranked choice voting. I still don't see how that leads them to elect a Democrat over an incumbent Republican who's perfectly popular. I just don't understand that.
If I have to pick one out of the 3, to me the more realistic is Alaska, which is crazy because for most people it's Texas, and I feel like I'm not looking at the same Texas everybody else is looking at. But
Celia is a charter member of the two-way community. Haven't seen her in a minute. Welcome in. Thank you for being here. I hope everything's good with you, and tell everybody where you are and what's on your mind for Yemisi.
Yes, I'm like Santa or Palantir. I'm always watching, but not always contributing. But basically, okay, so this is more an ethereal thought. Something I've been thinking about, just so background, obviously, as you know, Mark, I live in Tennessee now. I've lived here for almost a decade. Spent the first 2 decades of my life in Iowa, in a small town in rural southeast Iowa. And I'm not at all discounting polling and where things are going. I'm a one-time Trump voter. I've been able to vote for 3 presidential elections. The first 2, I avoided the top of the ticket. Third, I voted for Trump. And what I'm thinking is, and side note, I don't know if any of you guys are aware, The most popular podcast for people in rural areas in the United States, for the most part, is anything that Steve Rinella has to do with, Meat Eater. And they are very kind of single issue, uh, public land preservation, and kind of a seeming penchant to want to sell public land in this new administration, which I'm a little bit torn on. I think some can be good, some can be bad. Basically, long story short, I if the Democrats overperform, it's not going to be because of Republicans flipping. It will be because of them staying home. And I don't know why. It almost feels like people just, what, do we just not have an attention span anymore? We just think that people are upset for 6 months and they're going to change their party affiliation. I mean, I'm sorry, it just feels so fantastical. And I mean, sure, if anything, they'll stay home, but they're not going to flip for a Talarico in Texas, or anyone that doesn't identify with them personally in the state of Iowa. And there are very specific issues in the state of Iowa that have to deal with farmers, land use, tax rates on my father is a corn, soybean, and cattle farmer. So he has very specific needs that are not talked much about on a national stage. I just like want everyone to kind of focus in and think about, like, if you have any connection to rural America, and to think that certain states are just off of 6 months being mad at Trump are going to flip to Democrats. Like, I'm sorry, to me, that just feels somewhat crazy.
Yeah, I will
sorry,
say,
not much of a question.
I
No,
love,
no, love the frame. Go ahead, Yemisi.
I love this, and I have a question for you on Iowa. I always think that Republicans, anytime we have this like blue wave, I truly think it is like, it's because the rush of Dems out the door to get to the voting booth, and Republicans staying home because there's no one dynamic top of ticket for that. And so I don't even know if it's our ingenuity that wins it for us, but it really is just the lack of care that Republicans seem to hit when it is not a presidential. Now, that being said, I wonder what you think about Josh Turek, because he in Iowa has been put forth by all the high dollar donors in the Democratic Party as somebody who can actually galvanize turnout on the Dem side, but also maybe convince independents. I don't know. I mean, I agree. I don't know if you're a red-blooded Republican Iowan, if like this is the race that turns you that way. I do think Rob Sands is somebody, but I don't know. Josh Turek for the Senate. What do we think?
I mean, he's not. This is actually meant as a compliment. He's not inherently disgusting, if that makes sense. He, I think, would appeal to us. And so, like, if this makes any sense, I'm from just outside of Iowa City. My mom's from Iowa City. I went to the University of Iowa in Iowa City. It, for the longest time, had the second highest gay population per capita behind San Francisco in the United States. A lot of people don't understand that. So there are these very, very deep blue pockets that when you talk about population, you talk about distribution, that all of a sudden certain districts around those major hubs can be affected by that so much. And I do think, to that point, also people that like my mom, who is a Democrat her entire life, she lived in my tiny town and voted for Democrats in my tiny town and drove 30 minutes to Iowa City for work every day. So like you will have that. I do think he will have some appeal there. In my experience, even more so than in Knoxville and in East Tennessee, the starkness in the difference, the line is so thick between your Republican voters and your Democratic voters. Like, we have tiny Facebook groups that have been destroyed for 10 years because of political separation in my hometown, and those no one is flipping sides. So like, can you appeal maybe to somewhat of a softer side of that? Sure. I just don't think overall, like, it's very cut in the wool there. It's very just, I think you're just kind of used to your stripes.
Yeah.
So I think MSNBC. MSNBC's been running, all these videos of these one-offs of Republicans being like, I've always voted for Trump, but never again, never again. And I think those are like 12 stories across the nation. But for the most part, like people will just stick to their parties.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they'll just avoid that ticket, that race, if it's something they have an issue with, because the Republicans will show up. We have very active local elections, always pretty high turnout local elections. They'll just avoid tickets they don't feel comfortable with.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you. Grateful to you. Yemisi, you may not know this, so I'm going to let you off the hook, but if you refer to it as MSNBC, you have to pay a $40,000 fine. So try to remember.
Okay.
A couple things to tell you about. Alex Ward, the Wall Street Journal national security reporter, just tweeted this. At least 3 congressional Republicans, including chairs of House and Senate Armed Services, are hinting strongly that a grand operation in Iran is planned and could potentially be underway soon. I believe we talked about that earlier in the program. So when you wake up tomorrow, be ready. Tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, Michael Moynihan has an Ask Me Anything episode. I joined Michael on two-way. Ask him whatever you want. He's a fascinating and talented man. And tomorrow morning on the morning meeting, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, Larry and Kevin will be back, and we'll cover all the day's news and maybe have some maps to show you a ground war. We shall see. Yemisi, thank you for being here. Grateful to you as always, and look forward to you hosting the next California debate. That's my dream. Thank you.
Excited.
Thank you all for being part of Two Way. Grateful to you all for being part of the community. You make this platform different than every other, and that's why we remain so very grateful to you. And again, if you haven't watched my hour-long explanation of the Senate map on Next Up, I recommend it to you. It's available now on YouTube and as a podcast. A lot of reporting went into it. And again, it's easy to blithely say, oh, I think Democrats have a good chance to take the Senate, or I think their odds have increased. But if it's based on going 6 for 6 and then winning Alaska, I would stipulate that that's still a pretty big long shot. Have a great evening, everybody. I'll see you at 9 a.m. tomorrow on the morning meeting.